Yes, welcome everybody. This is the website's call. It's November 9th. We discuss anything related to the Layer 5 side projects on this particular call, including the Layer 5 NG site, the Meshri doc site, the Meshri site. You'll find links to all of them somewhere in the meeting minutes, in the older meeting minutes. If you can't, ping in the chat. We'll provide the links. The doc that you can now see on call, there's a link to that in the meeting minutes. You should have access to it. Again, if you don't, just speak out and we'll get you access. Uh, kicking it off, Tanuj, you can go ahead.
Yeah, uh, let me just present my screen.
Sure.
Yes, so this is currently still a work in progress, but the basic idea is to replace there was an old pagination plugin. Uh, there is a pagination plugin from Gatsby which lets you paginate the pages, but it provided limited functionalities, just like only going to the next page, like suppose if I So what I did was use another component from React and try to use both of them together. So it's currently still a work in progress, but it changes the page. But as you can see, the state of the pagination plugin is destroyed because the page changed. So still figuring out a way to get past that currently.
Uh, I'm chuckling because I feel like my voice fills the air a lot on this call, and that's not by design. What do people think about Tanuja's work?
Uh,
Let-
Looks good, Tanuj.
Yeah, I don't think like what kind of feedback can we give on this?
yeah, good question. Actually, I've got a couple of questions and and some critiques on the UI here. Happy Monday to everybody. I guess. I'm mostly kidding on the critiques. Question. So Tanuja, understand. Thank you for demoing this. I understand it's a work in progress, given the that you're working on the maintaining state across the pages. So just thinking aloud with everyone, I guess. Part of the behavior here is when you navigate to a new page, the part of how that state, if you will, is being tracked is in the URI itself. The /2 means that you're on page 2 of however many there are. Is that being queued from in terms of, is that where you're looking to store the state of the page?
Actually, this was a component npm package of React. So I don't know how it's tracking the state inbuilt, but whenever I try to change the page, uh, the state is destroyed. So trying to
Got
get through that currently.
Yeah, got you. I don't know if this probably isn't horrifically important, but let's say that there's 100 pages. I'm hoping that at some point we do have 100 pages. You don't happen to know the behavior of um,
It will show something like dot 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 in the between.
oh, okay. Yeah, nice. Um, right now we're on the grid view for the blogs. So we're seeing 8 or so blogs, I think, on the page. And then,
Yeah,
all right. If you switch to, I can't remember what it is. I know we have a single page blog view, obviously, but we also have a
list
single
view.
column. Okay. So no change in behavior really. Um, or the pagination isn't based on a static number of um, blogs per page. It's potentially something to look into because, like, conceptually, if we just halved the number of blogs that we're looking at, you might expect that there might be like 6 pages, or there would be more than 3.
Yeah, actually, the problem with that was uh, like what this pagination plugin from Gatsby does is it takes a single template and renders it continuously. So how we are switching currently between the grid view and the list view is that we just simply, instead of changing the page, which would change the URL, we are just simply is switching out the components. So the Gatsby plugin doesn't know that a view has changed. It knows that only uh, that page still exists, but inside the view has changed. It has nothing to do with it. So it is so that is if we want to change the number of pages for the list view, uh, the, the only thing I can think of doing currently is changing the URL also. But that is not something we want when we switch between grid view and list view.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. So that's you're still working through those. Um, yeah, yeah. Other than that, I think we're still trying to figure out if there's a couple of action colors, and when we figure that out, maybe there's a different action color here.
Yeah.
Uh, any other feedback for Tanuj on this? So a couple quick call outs. One is that Tanuj, the switcher between the list view and the grid view, it is still an open challenge for anyone on the call that might want to take a crack at that, because I don't think we quite landed where we had wanted to take a crack at the design of that, not the functionality. The functionality works well, but so, by the way, there's a couple of other things that as folks, as the attendees that are on here, some of whom are new, couple of first timers on the call, but also some old timers, if you will. Uh, there's plenty of opportunity. Like, as we look at the Layer5 NG site, Shriti was noting that there's 4 or 5 other, in total, there's like 5 or 6 sites. Most of them are based on Jekyll. This one is based on Gatsby. The Meshry UI, that applications interface, that's based on React. There's another forthcoming project tentatively named Get Nighthawk that would probably be based on Jekyll as well. And that would be a brand new site. And so I'm calling all that out so that, because as we discussed today, probably I expect a large part of our focus is probably on, well, may or may not be, but is often on this next generation site. Know that there are other challenges on other sites. So a couple of challenges. There's a lot of challenges on the Layer5 NG site because it's new and has yet to be published. But one of them is a redesign of the grid and list view buttons. Another one is the latest post widget. It's not showing you the latest post. I mean, there's probably a GraphQL query in there somewhere, I
Yeah, we
suspect.
actually we reserved that for Strappy. The thinking was that we will show if we can somehow get the count of the number of posts someone visits, then we can show the most popular post there, something like that.
Oh, okay. Forget that. I mean, that's a decent idea, but actually, what happens is if you did that for all time, you'd end up with a static list of posts. Because what happens is it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy of, oh, that's the most popular. I'll click it. Okay. And now it's perpetually and will always forever be the most popular. You can set it like for like a month to rotate on a month basis or something, but like instead, it'd be nice if we go live with this site relatively soon. I know Tanuj and Josh and anyone else going to IIT Jodhpur have got exams this week, so I'm really pleased that both Tanuj and Josh are actually on. Um, and I'd be curious if anybody else has got exams going on this week as well. But yeah, it's Tanuj we might want to just press forth. It might still be the right thing to do to kind of wait for Strappy for something. It could be. On that note, on Strappy, is if you're not familiar with Strappy, it's a piece of tech that we are looking at using. There's a link to it in the chat. It's a content management system. It is to interface with Gatsby, the system that's running Layer5NG, the site that you're looking at right now. And it is to be a WYSIWYG interface. It's to be an authoring and editing interface, primarily for the different collections that have been created on this site. So blogs are a collection of posts, or the blog is a collection of posts. The other widget, the categories widget. So actually, here's a call out for everyone on the call. If you're interested to work on these items, the latest post area, the categories area, and the tags, all three of those widgets, I don't know that they actually.
The tax part work, yeah. If we are not going with what I said about Strappy, this should be relatively simple, and the categories would be similar to the tax part. Only the categories would be fixed. You can just keep it something temporary as for now.
On the category, so categories being fixed by us or fixed as a site, tags being a bit more willy-nilly by the post author. Are the tags today, are those really tags or are those categories?
Uh, these were just some dummy tags added by me because I don't know what tags to give to the posts.
Sure. But
It was
okay, nice. Okay. Um, so good. So at least those two widgets. There was one other thing I think on this page that might be of interest to people. If you scroll down toward the bottom, I guess it's actually not on the blogs page itself, but, and Shriti, I don't know if you're going to last the whole call. I know you're ill. If you are, if you could take this note, and this is for anyone that wants to pick it up, but in the footer, we have a community column. We don't have, we're going to end up participating in more programs than we're going to be able to list under community, where we have GSOC, GSOD, Community Bridge, and there's potentially others forthcoming. If we could just change that to programs and consolidate all three of those, that would be nice. We also want to go ahead and axe the languages plugin or set. I'm pretty darn sure that's not going to make the cut. we, if we could, let's list that as something to chop, and we'll say a few words when that happens. I know Josh and some others have worked on that. The contact section, if you hover over that, Tanuj, those are
Mm,
not interactive, are they? That
No.
that just will that will not do. That will not stand. We have to one spread out the buttons a little bit. They're sort of suffocating each other, uh, and they might spread a communicable disease between them if they. But they also would be nice if something happened when people rolled over them. On the other sites, we're doing it'll colorize the button, but we don't have to. There's no requirement that the new site look like the old one. As a matter of fact, that's a large part of the point that it doesn't. Cool. Tanuj, thanks for showing the pagination. This pagination plugin is actually ideally useful for any collection. Is that, I'm assuming that would be right? Like that, it's just a generic in that way?
Yeah.
Okay, good. There's a lot of collections, so that's good. Uh, mm, well, thank you, Tanuj. Good.
Yeah.
all right. Those points have been noted and will be converted into GitHub issues, hopefully. Moving on, Vinayak, I think
Hello.
you have a topic today. Hey,
Okay, I will share my screen.
sure.
Is my screen visible?
Yep, it is.
Okay, so basically, first of all, I shifted the three card design to the four card design in the members page. And before we had the same card that we had outside inside the profile page for everyone. And I've shifted it to this format as suggested by Lee. And I've added four new fields. First is the location, second is the bio, and third is the skills, and fourth is the technology. It was also suggested to add the time zone, but I think the time zone would be not required as you already have the location thing over here, and both are almost the same.
I did see this before the meeting also. So like uh, I can say the design or the layout is like very good, I can say. But the thing is like of the font size and a few things needs to be like improvised if possible.
Yes, I basically saw this thing that the bio font that I actually pushed in my commit is way too small. Like I've changed it a little bit, but yes, I think we need to improvise on that too.
Yeah, so and basically we can just like add let's say a horizontal divider after your name or either after contributor, so like it looks something good, I can say. So
Basically,
like after the
differentiate.
two head after the heading and the subheading you can just add. Yeah, so basically you can just add it like it differentiates between the title and the body or something. So like after the name and the contributor designation you can just add a horizontal line, not a full size but somewhere. So it's basically part of design, not for differentiating, but yeah. So that's a few things that like can be added for a better design, or that's can say.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
so
would
like I am not
sort of.
anyways I I think it's your PR, like you are already working and it's not completed, so I won't comment. So yeah, like we'll be looking forward to see what other style changes or the things that you bring out.
Okay.
Right. Vinayak, I think I have to provide something here. The LinkedIn handles of all the community members.
Right. Lee, I think, created a few issues about the LinkedIn
Hmm.
handles, and I think it would be better if like someone did all of it instead of like doing one by one or something, because it is like so many issues have been listed down, and so many PRs against those issues.
Just out of curiosity, how many community members are there in total? Would you have
You,
an idea?
100, I guess.
you, if anyone should know, that should be you.
Yeah.
So about half of them have had the issues created.
Mhm,
Really, it's only the ones that are active that need the issues created. Um,
mhm.
I think they've been created up to about halfway now. I have to see the person's name to know. The reason that they've been individually created is because I think there are less issues open than there are people on this call. As a matter of fact, I'm sure that that's the case, which means that every person on this call, most of you have not had a chance or have taken the time to contribute to this site or to using Gatsby. There's a there are, and actually Tanuj or whomever is sharing, Vinayak, maybe you could show those issues and people can go pick them up. It's a good way for everyone to get familiar and comfortable with the site, and that's actually the reason to Vinayak is, as a matter of fact, like to have created like this is half of the issues for me to have gone through and just listed all the LinkedIn profiles on all of them would have been less time probably, um, but actually doing it to help encourage folks. I know that there's a number of people on this call who don't know what Gatsby is, but I know that for sure that each of those people that don't, they could go make this update because it's just a one-line thing, and that would and force them to go through the process of building the site and beginning to become comfortable. So it's inefficient, but there's some logic to it. That doesn't mean that we always have to do updates like this. And as a matter of fact, like a single person could do the remainder of them, um, but that's the logic as to why it was done.
Okay.
Just a question, Lee. I saw a contributor had like tried to add those LinkedIn profiles to Layer 5 website as well. So, like, are we planning to do that for Layer 5 or no? We just like skip it for now.
Skip it for now because so the question, by the way, everyone, most of you I think are familiar, but not everyone, that the repository that Vinayak is sharing right now, it's the repository name is Layer 5, and that repo has really like two long-lived branches. The master branch is the one that has the current Layer5.io website that's based on Jekyll. Um, there's another branch called Layer5-NG, NG just being next generation, like the next version. That next version actually it's not based on Jekyll. It's what Vinayak and Tanuj were just sharing. It's based on Gatsby. Yet both sites are in the same repo. If you're curious as to why that is, I'll explain that. Come ping me and I'll explain it to you. Um, at some point, the master branch will go away, and the site will just, or I'm sorry, the repo will just be Layer5-NG. And so I mention this because Josh and the collection of all of you that are maintaining the two sites are having to, well, do just that. You're having to maintain changes in both. And anymore, we want to try to optimize for changes going into Layer5-NG and trying to get that site live. there's a couple of things that we do have to update on the current site just based on timing. Like, hey, I think we're speaking this week at a conference. We're speaking next week. I think it's next week at another conference. And so small updates need to go onto the current site to let people know of our activities. But really, like, to the extent that we can, we want to try to push the enhancements to the new site. So in this case, Josh, yeah, I think we can forego backporting the changes and just go forth with the NG site. So nice, Vinayak, nice job. There's the 4-card view, pretty neat, and the 3-card view, pretty neat. Does anyone else get the sense that things are getting a bit tall?
Yeah,
I'm gonna
maybe we can remove the icons from this page because it is already present in the page. And
uh, uh, who's sharing the screen currently?
Lee.
Lee, can you just click on any of the links of any in the grid view itself? Uh,
Oh, like
any of the GitHub or any links? Yeah, yeah. So I was talking about this issue that the click on links also directs it to the individual page and not to those links. But right clicks do, but the left clicks don't. So I think the on click effect of the card is like dominating over the effect of the social links on this component, I guess.
yeah, that's a good. I know someone's probably writing that down. No, we're not. So,
I am. Go ahead.
oh, nice. All right, that sounds like a bug. Yeah, a couple of things. Yeah, so Tanuj raises up an interesting thing, I think, for people to give some consideration to. I guess it's kind of an open question for everyone on the call. Like, hey, do you consider that, like, well, one, do you consider that these are getting a little skinny? If you don't, then probably you don't have to consider the second question, which is, if they're a little skinny, how might we reduce the height to, they don't need to be square, but, and that could be just like, hey, there's like, to the extent that no one's name line wraps, if we've even with Javier's name, that if that's the case, there might be some extra room, some room to be removed here, maybe. Just maybe that's enough to bring it back into order. I don't know. Otherwise, to Tanuj's open question is like, hey, these links, they're going to be potentially repetitive of what you'll find here. That's true. A comment that I'll place on that is that if we do remove these, this in particular is something of a, well, I'd say something of a badge of honor. This represents quite a bit of work from these individuals. And so it might be nice to be able to capture it somewhere. Maybe it just overlays, on the, but it'd be nice, like if you're going to, and it could be kind of the same thing for maintainers as well. We don't have a visual designation for that, but that, like, yeah, there's some badges that I would say people have certainly earned that are nice to show somewhere.
I
Hello.
have yeah.
Yeah.
Hello. I have a suggestion that we can only have an image, and when somebody hovers on it, we can add a overlay. Like the background, the current image will be converted to a background image, and the overlay would have info and all the links or the icons that you want.
Yeah.
That will only we can have a name and image, and when you will hover over it, we can have an overlay some kind in that circle.
Yeah, that's a good. That's an interesting thought. Here, let me bring up a site that I think does kind of that, which is, hey, there's a collection of individuals. They've got social links. If you click their picture, you get a modal, you get an overlay, and it looks decent. I think some of them are longer than others. I click here, same thing. So it's kind of, geez, kind of repetitive. I mean, but but this is a good way of so from my part, like the the issue that I have with showing this overlay, showing this modal is, well, is that Bob can't doesn't have a link. But yeah, there's something is that Bob doesn't have a link to his actual profile. So if you wanted to um, say, I don't, you know, I don't,
I made that guy. That guy.
yeah, I don't know. It doesn't take much to make it in this program, I tell you.
I agree with having a direct link for my profile in Layer 5 side is like I don't care if it's repetitive if I am having my own link.
Yeah.
So it's like if you want a direct link, you are going to use that, and if you are overlaying, if you are seeing the contribution link, the contributors list, it's also good to have the direct links to social networks. So
Yeah.
I like the way it's right now.
Yeah, a suggestion. Could you go back to the grid, the Layer 5 grid? Yeah, the social buttons are fine. When you click on any particular member page, they could maybe have the time zone of the particular member or what they're good with or what they're working with in Layer 5. That way you won't have to change the entire grid view. They'll still have a page.
Mm.
And yes,
Yeah.
I agree with Zeus that having an individual link to every member makes sense because they can point back to it whenever they want.
Yeah. Actually, Vinayak was demoing a new layout for the individual page that
Mhm.
captures that just a
Okay,
moment ago.
I didn't.
Looking.
There is also a link for that. I'll share.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
So nice. Okay. Not necessarily a closed conversation, but just to move on to other things. I mean, please keep the conversations going in the channel or in the meeting minutes. But there's the next topic, the venue. Oh, actually, the next topic I keep forgetting.
I'd like to interrupt.
Mhm.
Sorry, Lee. uh, so as the next topic is newcomers, so are the newcomers introduced?
That's exactly what I was going to get. Yeah, nice.
I knew it.
Piyush Thange, please go ahead. You are the first newcomer for today.
Nice. I don't think that anyone is. So hey, Payush. Oh, okay. Cool. Very good. Payush is new on the call as of today, which is very nice to have him. So he's going to introduce in the chat. He's got some audio connectivity issues. While his fingers are busy on the keyboard, Shriti, is Wilfred new as well?
Yeah, Piyush. Yash Agarwal as well. Wilfred, go ahead. Please do introduce yourself if you can.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Yash Agrawal and studying in IT Guwahati final year undergraduate, and yeah, I just joined one more meeting before before I think 15 or 20 days before, where I present my graph space part, and yeah, So today, like I joined one more time, yeah, and yeah, definitely I will start contributing from the December part. But Lee told me to ramp up in the month of November to get familiar with all these things. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay, looks like Wilfred is having audio issues as well. So we have two intros in the chat. Um, Wilfred, I'm assuming that you mistyped that, and that says I'm not able to use my audio at the moment. If you can speak up, Piyush or Wilfred, please do. If you can't, the intro in the chat is good enough. Moving on, the Vendu, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just share my screen.
Sure.
Uh, yeah, I hope you can see it.
Yeah, we can.
So, yeah, so what I did is we added a new newcomer page under the community section. So, it will give the newcomers an idea on how to start contributing to Layer 5, and it also showcases the important links and docs related to Layer 5, and yeah, it generally walks the newcomer through the contributing flow. And I also added the Hacktoberfest tutorials and the links to the recording and the slides. Yeah, that's it. And we can maybe add this to the NGO website also. Yeah, that's it.
Well, don't all get feedback at once. Don't.
Um,
This is a great idea. I don't know if this is in part like Pratik's or whomever's, but my goodness, what I can't imagine how many times we will reference this URL. You know, like between the layer5io/community. By the way, is the page structure such that newcomers, does this come under the /community URL?
Yeah, yeah, it's under the communities in the navigation tab. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But in terms of like the URL structure, it's a layer5io/community/newcomers.
Yeah, no, it's like just newcomers. Maybe we
Oh,
can
okay.
change that.
Okay, yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And then,
Also,
yeah,
the line under the picture, issues up for grabs, that maybe there should be a little bit more padding there.
Yeah, yeah, I'll add some padding. But this first paragraph is like too small, so I couldn't.
Makes sense.
Yeah, maybe I'll add. Yeah.
Sure.
Anything else we need to add to this?
wow, it's pretty nice. Yeah,
A bit more.
in the first intro paragraph, it might be something like a little bit of a, oh, okay, no, I guess it says welcome newcomers with a exclamation. That's nice. So it's by the way, I think it's commonplace, and I am guilty of this every other time I refer to Slack. I think technically it's like people would join the Slack workspace, and then there are channels inside of it. We might want to use that lingo.
Yeah,
The
Yeah, that makes sense.
there's yeah, no, I do it every time. There's a link to the there's like a hashtag newcomers. I think like we're mentioning the newcomers channel down below, which is great. There's a bit of I don't know that it's obvious to everyone. It wasn't to me, but inside of Slack, I think whether you're in the app or the web page, I think you can right click on a channel. You can end up getting the channel ID. Basically, you can get the link direct to the channel. So you might even, just for good measure, throw in the hyperlink down. I think it's like another paragraph down. There's a newcomers hashtag. I thought somewhere. Yeah. Oh no, you
Yeah,
got it.
I think I added.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't link it, I think.
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, you know what? Actually, you actually have it in step 6 as well. So. And you know what's funny is in step 7 it says Slack workspace and stuff. So
Yeah, I just took it from the top. Yeah, like it had different terminology.
So Navendu, thank you for this. It's not. Hey, I know you've only been around for just a short little while, but you're already showing off some nice work, a whole new page, one that will be highly referenced. There's no doubt in my mind. You actually have some great testers, if you will, on the call. So like Wilfred and Piyush and Yash. They might have been through some of this content before, but a lot of it should still be fairly fresh for them. So between the 3 of them, would you mind pointing your PR out to them? That would give them an opportunity to give you some great feedback, as well as for them to get into kind of a review mode. I'm not sure if it's obvious to everyone on the call, but everyone that is here is certainly welcome to review pull requests. It can be a bit of work for a small few if they're the only ones providing review, but then 2, by reviewing others' work, it's an excellent way to learn, because you get to look at the code and see what it's doing under a confined use case without having had to take on the challenge of actually creating that code. So, and plus, it always feels good to get feedback, right? Like it always feels good to. So.
Hi, I have a comment. It's not related with these newcomers, but for the guides, newcomers guide, Layer5 community welcome, and Layer5 repository overview. Is there a plan to move those that information into a web page instead of document?
I'll let you
Well,
answer. Yeah.
maybe we should talk about that. Yeah, Jesus, I don't think that's a great suggestion. I don't know that I think a lot of you will notice that we use Google Docs. We have a community shared drive, and there's a lot of things in there. There's a lot of website assets, a lot of SVGs and logos and docs, the meeting minutes that we're looking at and sharing today. In part, we use Google Docs because it's a real-time collaboration tool, which really helps. It's an asynchronous collaboration tool. It's a good review tool, all the things. But it's also quicker to get some information online. But over time, to Jesus's point, like the welcome guide, the Layer5 welcome guide, it's been pretty static for a while. And it can be, humans can actually remember when a new person joins and they say, which everyone does, like, hey, I'm here. What did I miss? Or, what's going on? Where do I get plugged in? Who can I talk to? All these things. You can actually remember, oh yeah, hey, it's Layer5IO community newcomers, or community welcome, or just Layer5IO community. And that is an index that should have a link to newcomers. It should have a link to, as opposed to, and if there's a Layer5 IO community welcome, or you can actually remember that because it's English, as opposed to some really long GitHub or Google Doc mumbo jumbo in the URL that you could never remember. I guess part of my point is like, hey, it's that makes some sense. Your suggestion makes sense from that perspective, Jesus. It also makes sense from the perspective that while it was easy enough up front to publish that information into a Google Doc and then change it and change it and change it, after some time, that information has congealed and the updates to it are infrequent. And so, yeah, I think it would give Layer5 and the Layer5 IO site even more of a community feel. Like there are a number of pictures and things that we've taken and people that have spoken on stage or written blog posts or gotten jobs or other, like there's those, or like people that have given workshops, to new contributors. Like that, it would be nice to get some of that up as well. Like when we're, how we have the generic Navindu, like right now you have the generic graphic with the question mark and the two people that I suspect came from, is it Undraw? That site probably.
Yeah, Undraw.
Yeah, that's some modern looking flat, it's contemporary style. It also looks just like it came from Undraw, because you and I didn't talk. I didn't know that you'd done that, but like it looks good, and it also looks totally generic. And in some respects, like it's fine. We want it to be generic. It's not, but actually, if you imagine like putting in a meshmate picture or putting in putting in Vinayak smiling as we captured his photo on today because he was getting great feedback on his work, or like that might be kind of nice. I guess my point is this is a great initiative. We should make things a bit personal. We really do try to make it personal, which I think is awkward for some people who will join the call. It's like, wait a second, I just wanted to hang out in the background. Stop calling me out. It makes me uncomfortable. Which it's unfortunate if it does make people feel uncomfortable. But what we are trying to do is recognize everybody, each and every person that gives their time. And so, yes, is the really long answer to your question, Jesus. I would vote for that suggestion. Jesus, you had another suggestion that I've neglected to follow up on, and let's see, I'll toss this out here because it wasn't the first time it was suggested, and it's many of you are familiar with the awesome repositories. Like you'll go onto GitHub and you'll look for React resources, and there's an awesome React or an awesome Gatsby or an awesome Kubernetes, and it's a list, right? Well, there can be an awesome service mesh, which is kind of the technology of focus for us. In many respects, the Layer5 IO site is intended to be itself is intended to be an awesome repository of service mesh things. Right now, it's not. Like the new site is set up to be that way. We will have thousands of pages soon after that site goes live. But until then, maybe it makes sense to have a GitHub repo that is an awesome service mesh repo. So.
All right, that's something for us to follow up on. One quick suggestion here. The tables that we're using here, this one and the bottom one, maybe we should either switch this to remove the CSS, or we should add the CSS to the other ones as well. Does that make sense to anybody?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
And yeah,
the
this
same is
great. that this particular row should either be moved downward, like down, or there should be something in the other two columns because this looks a little uh, a little tilted, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, that's it from me. Anybody else?
Uh, so as I also already suggested Naven to work on the responsiveness. Like there's I think a smaller issue over in the responsiveness. So as we will be working on that, maybe we can also like you all can just add your suggestions in that issue or PR itself for those revamping ideas to Navendu.
Okay.
If all the topics for today are done, I wanted to share some update on the landscape part.
Um, well, we are done instead of this one thing from me, but I'll just add a quick line. We have to introduce versioning in the Mesh Doc site. If anybody wants to work in it, please do contact me. We already asked a particular person, Shankar Ghosh, to work on it. Haven't had a reply from me yet though. So if anybody else is wanting to work on it, please come talk to me. All possible links that you need to get familiar with the issue are provided in the meeting minutes. So go ahead, have a look, and if it interests you, get back to me. Nicole, you can go ahead.
Yeah. So I share my screen.
Sure.
Just a second. Is it visible?
Yep.
So yeah, I was working on the enhancement of this page. So I've made few modifications, not completely. I just want some feedback if that's good or I should revert back or something. Like I've changed few colors. She added this icon in the timeline button, content icon itself. I don't know if this looks good. I shall move it as well. The icon needs to be changed. Like we only need to have the icon of the mesh and not the for the meshes which don't have an icon. Like we don't have an icon right now. We can leave it blank. Apart from that, I've added this table and added this tabular functionality with using which we can switch to different tables.
How dare you?
This needs to be changed. Only first two are complete from my aspect. So yeah, I don't know if the colors are good or looking good or not. I've tried to make it as normal as possible. Maybe I'm wrong.
Mm. Mm. I would again say the thing I saw spoke in the last meeting, that's too much of green, and wait for Lee to counter it.
Oh, my eyes are hurting. I can't. It's like.
Yeah.
So sorry. Since we're low on time, I won't stop making jokes and say, "Oh my gosh! Thank you for for organizing the information into menus." Like, yeah, that was nice. You still got the call out for people to submit an issue. That's nice as well. At some point, yeah, I guess it still makes sense for them to submit an issue. Yeah, it's still very much a community curated thing. The SMI table is probably forthcoming. Drew had given an update on that one, I think in Jekyll, which looked pretty darn good. On the timeline, yeah, this is an interesting thought. Well, one item with the timeline is that takes up, I don't know, I'm of two minds. It takes up a lot of room, but which is, I'm saying that as a negative. On the positive side is like, well, people are able to walk through the timeline because they sort of take it in as they go. And I think that's helpful. It's not overwhelming in that sense. It is an interesting thing if the icon, the project logo does go into the bubble itself. Then what's left is the date that occurred and potentially the name. But if the logo does a good enough job and is actually, I don't know that all the logos are self-identifiable, like network service mesh, for example. We would probably want to still have the date plus capture the name. And so, yeah, the call outs, the tooltips, or what, the persistent tooltips, if you will, those labels, they, yeah, I suppose we would still need something. It could just be text like the date with the name, like the name in bold and the date underneath. I wonder what it would look like if this is, I guess being vertical is okay. But this is an interesting thing. Yeah, maybe what it would be is like, hey, let's go ahead and remove the large, I called it a tooltip just now, but the large label. If that's removed, you get a lot of space back. That might mean that we could open up the bubble a little bit, maybe make the timeline thicker, open up the bubble a little bit to give space to the logo, and then just have the annotation that's coming off the timeline is just the name and the date.
Like when we hover on the bubble or click on the button, then this card will pop out.
Nice. Oh, wow. Okay. That's pretty cool. Yeah, because then it could have a brief description potentially as well. Like it wouldn't have to have the date. And it could be a bit dense because people are already getting the visually attractive view and the bird's eye view. And when they hover, they are expecting and anticipating a bit more info. Like, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you were also suggesting like if we can move this timeline to horizontal view instead of showing it to vertical.
I don't know if anybody else has.
If means if we make it horizontally, then I guess there might be a scroll bar which would be introduced.
Yeah. So yeah, if it doesn't fit like that, probably the horizontal suggestion is probably a bad one. Then yeah, I guess you'd have to have a frame that you scroll through. Maybe not the best suggestion, and plus it's just more work, and so leaving it vertical is probably the right thing to do.
The main thing that I had a lot of doubt was regarding this color choice, which I'm not sure pretty. Like if this looks good or not, then I'll just simply add a simple table.
Yeah, the table looks fantastic. The icons they're very helpful for people's eyes to just train over it very quickly. Is the table sortable? That would be
No, that I will add that functionality.
okay.
We
Nice.
have a prop for that. Means I just need to add it.
Okay. And then, Nikhil, I think we've gone on public record in the past that you're legally colorblind, and so I don't think we have to speak to.
I totally agree on that. The thing is, like the color options that we have based on the brand colors, we have three colors, this one and the blue one. I was not sure about the blue one, and I didn't want to keep the table color to follow a single color, means in
Yeah, I
a
completely
single
agree
color.
there. We need to
So,
add a few more colors.
so I wanted to be it is at least use two colors for the table or three colors, like one for the header and two for the table. So I was a bit short of colors.
I think that's entirely fair. Totally fair to blame it on the colors. There aren't many to choose from, and yeah.
So what we can do is, for the time being, I will simply keep it black and gray, white and gray a bit, and later on, if we get or plan something new, some new colors come in, we can add.
That sounds wonderful. It sounds exactly right. If you could, just for an interactive effect, even though they won't be able to click it, while you're in there changing the colors of the rows, if when someone hovers, it'd be nice to just hovers over a row for it to highlight a bit, or
Like if the means the row gets a bit enlarged, right?
you know how when you I'll send you a link to an example, like if you go to the layer5io/meshery, that table, it the table of many service meshes, it just has a light background coloring that'll occur
Okay.
as you, even though it doesn't, like you can, it's not like you can click on a blank area of the row, but it's just for effect. It's just to make people feel nice.
Got it. Yeah, I will. I was thinking about that part, like adding some hover effect on the rows. So I will update that for sure. Even we have links added for few of the columns, like the name have some tooltip and link for them. So yeah, that would be coming along with that.
This is nice though, Nikhil. It's a nice lift. It is good. There's merit to your exploration, like the timeline, doing what you were saying about only showing the label, the rich tooltip on hover.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I was even thinking about, like, if we can crop this meshes the images singular and then add some SVG animation to it. Though I don't have any idea how to do that, but that would look better. If a person hovers over one of them, it would enlarge a bit and the SVG animation would run in the background.
Hey, yeah, I don't know that I had a mental vision of the animation, but yeah, like, oh, you mean if you hover, like you could drop down the description?
Yeah, like if we hover on the, currently it's a single image which contains all the five meshes. If we will crop out into single meshes, like linked would be a separate image or whatever, we can make it using HTML. Then if we hover on either of them, it will bulge out a bit, and the we can use the colorful logo instead of the grayscale one, and there can be some animation in the back of the card itself.
Sounds good.
Yeah, a lot of work to do.
Yeah, really, it's nice. It's not, two other quick questions, and that is that Shivai, you don't happen to have an update on the mega menu by chance? And then I'll say Shivai's name a couple of more times. Let's see if Shivai, if you have a mega menu update, I would love to hear it. And then there's one last one. Austin, you, I think, had a second go at design for the service mesh trail map, if you will. And I haven't looked at it. It might be nice to show it here if you've got it handy.
Okay, all right, sir. Let me quickly change to my system and then share my screen.
Sure.
one question, Lee, should we remove the breadcrumbs?
Oh yeah. So all right. So I think there's merit. I think there's merit to the crumbs. There was merit to the crumbs somewhere, and I don't. It might be one of those things that that we would comment out to potentially bring back at some point. Because what might end up happening is that here we're conceptually 3 deep, and if there's a community newcomers, and if there's a community newcomers welcome, it might be that we would be 4 deep. Like there's now, granted, as I say this, it's not the best user experience to sometimes show breadcrumbs and sometimes not. It might be too early to call.
Okay.
You know, like because like so here, if the breadcrumbs were here, it would be, I think, a 3 deep thing. It would be home, projects, image hub. Yeah, I did, events. If we let people navigate by date or year, there could be a breadcrumb trail. Like I think there's potential for them. It's just so then the other Navindu had asked, hey, is there a date for when Layer5 NG might go live? And I'd like to set one. I feel like for my part, I'm not necessarily in control of what that might be. I'd like for us to start optimizing a bit toward that. That might mean pulling some things out, or that might mean we don't end up having everything that we desire on the first release on its go live. But there may be enough. But at some point, there will be enough to go live. There's a couple of things that we kind of need before we go live. So one is an understanding of how it is that we switch these out. Like, how easy is it to change these call outs per menu, per top level menu?
Yeah, Lee. So if we have those, I can replace them. And I'm right now from my phone, but I have basically edited the animation that was glitching when navigating from one menu to another menu.
Nice. So you've got a fix for that one then.
Yeah. So I just had one other question, that are you also trying to somehow manage like the breadcrumbs that you just spoke about with the mega menu? So because like as you showed right now that let's say there was like the community section which was 2 layers deep. So is that something also we should have in the menu itself, or that would be something that would be shown later, like once we go to one of the other menu sub menu?
I think that is an interesting question, Shivai. I do know that there's one use case for a significantly different menu, or it can be the same menu component, but it would be a significantly different choices. And that use case is basically a whole section of the site for learning and for working on labs. We refer to it as learn.layer5.io.
Yeah.
That whole section, like we want it to feel like they're on the same site, yet there will be so much to show them because there will be individual courses. There'll be learning paths with courses, and each course will have labs, and like it'll be dense, and it might be a better user experience if the mega menu is, if the menu itself is different as well, or like pushed off to the side or hidden or something, that such that there's something of a different menu. That's probably the biggest use case for.
Yeah, and just like since you were talking about the menu items that you see on the right hand side, the two different block style links. Can we like probably get the content that needs to be filled out for each one of them, so that we can get that replaced, since everything is like all the other menu items are showing the same two links.
Right. I'm taking a note. Yeah, I'll do that. Provide the content.
Yeah.
Understanding that that's something like ideally, well, yeah. Ideally, it would be nice if there was a system wherein we could use an attribute, an annotation, a label, or something on like for a given block, for a given menu, top level menu. Like let's say that we've got projects and blogs. Okay, well, which two projects do we want to highlight? Well, let's just set a flag, a label on two of the projects, and the mega menu would iterate through would go do a quick query, identify two that carry that flag and show them. I guess what I'm saying is like, we're going to understanding that we're going to need to change this out. Ideally, it would be a little bit dynamic. We still want to control it, but it does. We will want to frequently change it. Like if there's an events top level menu and you hover, like those events will change, every month, every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
That was actually a topic I was going to raise earlier, was the notion that we do need a little bit of a carousel potentially on the main page somewhere that is something that we can update with. It doesn't have to be news. It might be a new blog post, or we're speaking here, or there's a new project, whatever. It's just an announcements area that I'm bringing up as a related concept that, hey, I think Josh and Tanuj and everybody, I think we need an announcements area, one, but then two, the mechanics by which we determine what content is going to show in the announcements area could be a very similar mechanism for determining what content to show in the mega menu, what exploded content to show.
Yeah, I do understand the dynamic part.
Okay, I'll deliver on the content.
Yeah.
But thanks. Yeah, good. I'm looking forward to that bug being gone. It's atrocious. Cool. We're way over time. I know this. I wanted to make sure to give Austin a moment to show an idea. It's very frequently asked by anyone that's looking at adopting a piece of technology like a service mesh. The question is like, hey, when should I implement a service mesh? Or how do I know when it's time? Like, is it a service mesh? Is it worth it to me to go deploy it? And it's one of those answers that it's like an it depends question. And so there's a list of considerations that we have that Austin has been working with some. And so Austin, do you want to share with people? And Austin, you're muted.
Sorry about that, sir. Sorry about everyone. Over the past 1 week, we tried creating a page for the GitHub issue that was raised about when should I deploy a service mesh, when do I know I need a service mesh. So with the issues, we're able to create something very nice for the users and for us to ourselves. So first we started with the Euro section, and then we gave a brief description about what service mesh is. And my idea is on this section, when the service mesh has been explained, maybe you can click on the image or little button to download a PDF for PDF containing what a service mesh is. Then factors to consider when why in a service mesh. Then we brought out the card-like structure. So when someone hovers on this, they respond and maybe scale or glow a bit, have a little bit of interaction. So the user knows, okay, there's something here, and maybe we could direct them to a section or a different page. For example, when they are clicked, they go to a different page for a better understanding of that factor. And then, or when they're clicked, they go to this section. For example, when a user clicks service communication, goes down here and gives them description of what service communication is, and then factors to consider before using service communication. If they click number of service, same thing gives you. Then observability gives you a visualization of what observability is about and the factors to consider. Then a very critical section which we added was, do you need a service mesh? Because maybe someone might still feel, okay, I still do not understand why I need a service mesh. So this section is going to be like a Q&A section, and when the user clicks here, it takes them to a section like this, because on the GitHub issue, it was proposed for a Airtable form. So this idea was, we went with this idea. So when the user comes here, we give maybe about 8 to 10 questions, and the user enters his or her answers, and we give them feedback. And when they are done answering the question, they return back to the page. And then we now give them, when should I implement a service mesh? Another short survey. This time, all they have to do is just play with the range. Like, you just draw a slider, service communication, you draw a slider. We know how severe your concern is. And when you're done with all these surveys, we provide you with with an answer, maybe like after a little spinner. Yeah, we provide you with an answer, then we'll say get started, and that please they sign up for service mesh using the service mesh. And then if they do proceed to sign up, we 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 move to a different page. But if they don't, we then move to getting them as subscribers, or getting their concerns. Maybe they might have a concern why they don't want to implement service mesh currently. So each section is designed to make sure the user takes one or more particular action. Okay, so that's my presentation. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Feedback for Austin?
Okay, I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Nice, good. Well, Austin, I will. I have a lot of feedback, and rather than make everybody sit through it, I'll give you that separately. But does anybody have thoughts on what Austin just showed?
Yeah, the when you require service mesh thing is like pretty different, and yeah, like but I didn't much of understand the later part in that, like where there was some bars representing some percentages for those observability and other factors. So like I think we don't will we be using those things or something like.
There's a little more explanation needed as to. I think a little more explanation needed to the user as to how, if observability is important to them, how much does that factor in and weigh on their decision to use a service mesh? What in part was maybe part of the missing link there is that those slider bars wouldn't necessarily be shown, or they wouldn't be shown to the user until the user has filled in the survey, like answered a few questions. And that's kind of the results of the survey saying, well, hey, look, you're, in accordance with what you'd said, like this is how important observability seems to be to you. And there would need to be additional text to characterize it, to say, and so here's the ways in which a service mesh can provide that for you. There needs to be a little bit more of a report, a little more of a written report to augment the visuals. There's one component to this that's Austin is slightly off. It's once we've described the high-level functionality of a mesh, the fact that you can read about it in this short book, and then we go into the 3 sections on the different functional value provided by a service mesh. Those sections, like when you talk about like service communication, for example, going from high to low, I'm sorry, here. So this is really like part of the questionnaire. What we'd be asking them, hey, how important is service communication to you? And this isn't the consideration. This is more like on a slider bar, do your services have a lot of communication between them? Which would be this, you have high inter-service communication, or in your environment, do you have low inter-service communication? And people, like in the questionnaire, that Airtable, which by the way, ideally we don't actually literally use an Airtable, because the thing is that looks just like Buoyant stuff, and it basically looks like a ripoff of Buoyant stuff, and that's not what we want. Not that we can't write our own form, we can. Part of actually answering the questions might be presenting them a slider. So instead of them filling in a form, they move the slider to say, well, actually, we do have high inter-service communication. And the results of that, of them having slid the bar over saying, oh yeah, we have a lot, is then that we would give them in the report, we would give them, well, so understanding that you have a high volume of inter-service communication going on, here's how that blah, blah, blah. Like there would be an expanded set of discussion and guidance given. And this is kind of the guidance that they would be given. We can still have a section like this that talks about how a service mesh facilitates inter-service communication and what does that mean. We can explain what does that mean to them. But these 3 things here are really part of the question, because the question is, are you in a low or a high environment? And depending upon which one, we're going to give you some feedback on that, how meaningful it is. And it's actually it's the same thing for the other, for this. It's like, hey, how many services do you have? Do you just have a few, or do you have a lot? If you have a lot, you need a mesh. If you don't, like we're going to give them the response. So it's okay to talk about some things here, but this was intended to be the question. Like the question is, do you have a few or a lot? The same thing here is like, this actually does the job of explaining the fact that service meshes provide a lot of insight with little effort. Like this is fine. This is like a marketing pitch for the value of a mesh. But these 2 would need to be refactored to just talk about the value, not because this will go into the questionnaire. And the questionnaire is great. Like this is pretty, this is great. Let's find out. That's great. That's a great call to action. I like the let's part. And then, yeah, the way that we would visually present there's a lot of great things about what we've done here. I would say that as they're taking that survey and they click on the let's find out, that it would probably be the case that that's where we would hook them, is when they click on the let's find out and they're stepping through answering the questions, great, and they're all done. When they click done or finished, before we were to show them the report, that's when we would say, if you'd like your report, type in your email address here. Now, after they type in their email address, we might just do exactly what you had said, which is, thank you, and we'll just drop them back on the page with the report right there. Or maybe we are, but anyway, we can discuss kind of the experience from there, but the visualization is great. Maybe we show it immediately. Maybe we wait a day, actually look at it, provide them we have to determine whether or not we're going to want to give them their own unique report that they can refer back to with a special link for their own report over time, or if this is just a generic tool that anyone can come use transiently and get generic answers. I think right now we're set up, it would take more infrastructure on our end to give them to persist their report. We'll have to think about that, but a lot of good stuff in here. Really the only thing to potentially iterate on is just these two sections of like changing them into a section that talks about the fact that there's value. And I need to provide you probably some of this content, but that there's value when you're working with a lot of services. So shoot. So I did the thing I said I wasn't going to do, which was I gave a lot of feedback with everybody on the call. So this is nice. Any other feedback for Austin before we wrap up? Austin, you're going to put everybody.
Yeah, I think we can just move to a Slack group, and I can just have a look once more and give you some things, because I also personally have few ideas on that.
Nice. Austin's going to give everybody a bunch of work. Cool. Okay. Great job, Austin. Thank you all. It's been a long call. A lot of good work to show off, though. So see you this time next week.
All right, sir. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye, guys. Bye, Austin. See you guys.